We're starting now. Great. Boom, boom, dum. Uh-oh. Alrighty. And now we got the double volume one. That's what I'm looking for. All right. So it has been days, weeks. It has been far too long, but we're back, BB. Our basement flooded. We took on a lot of water, Mr. Squidward. So that took a while to get fixed out. But with that done, I've got the desk and my little work area back to being roughly about where they were. It's still a little bit of a mess, but still gonna get that cleaned up. I realized that I had a very impromptu, not impromptu, I forgot about it, game of scabs. So on Friday, I got really excited and I drew up this little guy. It's been forever. I never thought you'd return. I'm sorry. I destroyed the house. That was all I could do to tear up the couch cushions. I'm so sorry, Possum. It has been forever. I did not mean to be gone as long. I really thought that our basement was going to dry up and I'd be like, yeah, I'll go do the thing. But it snowed like a foot. Well, not a foot, but like half a foot. And then it rained for days after it snowed. So, like, all the snow melted and the rain, and it just, like, water never comes in. Like, because right behind the camera is like my foundation wall to our porch. So, there's like a 20 by 12, just like solid, like, patio, like, right here. And then the way that this is probably not good, but it's explaining like how bad the rain was. I've lived here since 2013. That's the corner that it always leaks from. It starts leaking from because the water level under the ground, like, I love this kind of stuff. I find it very interesting. So if this is not good morning stuff. I think Possum likes this stuff. I know you like cool stuff, Possum. You like science, you like nature. But if anyone else is watching, they're like, man, quit talking about the water. I'm here for fish and awful dick demons. We'll get to those. Yeah, so essentially, when it rains, that is the direction. The water in the area, it pulls in, and my wife and I had to go to like a town hall kind of meeting thing. That's how adult we are, where they wanted to talk to us about the draining aqueducts and the aquifers. Tell me about aquifers. So essentially, they are putting down like a bunch of really big pipes behind our house. Like, there's a back alley that over decades was like grown up, so it's just like completely covered like by grass, and then eventually trees grew in it. But they cut down all the trees because the trees started falling and smashing people's fences. My fence. That is the direction, though. That apparently there's like an underground, like almost like a reservoir, but it's essentially like the ground goes like this, so all the water underground slants that way. It's almost like It absolutely has to do with how, I mean, Kentucky, like our entire state was like, it's formed limestone, all that shit with Mammoth Cave. So there's a lot of moisture retention in our ground. We have weird ground here in Kentucky. Weird dirt. We got weird dirt. So, anywho, that is where the direction of water pools, like underground in our neighborhood. And I know this because when it rains enough, that is the first corner that the hyperpressure tension or hyperbaric pressure, hyperbaric pressure. So essentially, when you build a house, like you got your house, this is the foundation. You put the walls on top of it. That little line, like it doesn't actually get sealed, but there's a house on top of it. So like it's not really an issue until you get liquid. So there's just so much water in the ground that when it comes over here, even though there's technically not a hole, it just seeps in through the pores in between the joist, the floor joist. It's called floor joist, I do believe, technically, from like a builder's standpoint. I also realized that you were talking about framing possum, that you were a previous framer, and I thought you meant photo framing, like you made picture frames. I think you meant houses, uh, to explain how much I don't know about building houses. But yeah, that's where the water comes in from. To give you an idea of how much it rained, it's never come in from this side. Like that's what I brought up the porch. Like there's a full porch. I did mean picture frames. Oh no, okay, cool. So that's cool. So I did know what I was talking about. I thought I was crazy there for a second. Um, but yeah, the water came in from like under my desk. Like I don't even. It's never gotten that bad. Like I've never. The farthest that it's gone like maybe half, but it'll go all the way along the side of my house because there is a old shitty clay pipe. I don't know. I don't understand that one at all. But like they used clay pipes. There's no way they do now. But old homes, I guess they would use clay pipes in the ground for like irrigation. Like, oh, it rains, it goes down into here, and then it goes around. I don't know. It can't be a clay pipe. It's something else. I don't know why I said clay. It looks kind of like clay. It might be clay. I smashed them up from what I can reach on the top, but the outside is like covered. And the problem was like on the inside, when it would rain, those pipes got broken because there are all these trees and stuff, and our house is old. So when it would rain, these pipes would our gutters essentially took the water from our roof, put them down into the ground into these pipes that run along that wall. But the pipe broke. So it's like instead of putting water like away from my house, now like the gutters are taking it and putting it exactly right where I don't want it the most. So that, despite being the corner where like there actually is more dirt, that's the corner. Like it'll leak more over here as well because it's got that pipe running down there that's bringing water. Normally it doesn't come through here because we don't have gutters. Like we don't have the pipe that is broken on this side of the house. So whenever water came in from this side, I was like, oh shit, there is way more water in the ground than I had ever imagined. And that's my tangent about water levels. But the basement flooded, kept flooding, it would dry, and then it would get wet again. So I really didn't want to bring my rug back over here. And that seems silly to like not stream because of my rug, but my rug keeps me from sliding and rolling, which is very frustrating to try to be talking and then I just am rolling the other way. Uh, and I know myself, I don't think I'm awake enough to like realize that I probably would be doing that. So then I probably would just be catching myself and like pulling myself back up over and over and over again. And it's just not good. So anywho, not impromptu. It was not impromptu at all. Ain't nothing impromptu about this. Clay and Brian hit me up on Instagram, Super Claymation, and surprised you found me about meeting up and playing since they are in my my area. I have a gnarly boat. Thank you, Possum. Thank you for getting me back to talking about things that people want to hear about. Uh, so I remembered on Friday, I was like, oh shit, there's a game that I have like was excited to play with my local hobby friends because we were gonna meet up because I'm done being a hermit, everybody. Uh, and I was like, man, Scabs, what's this game about? So then I looked it up and I saw that it was a game about boats, which is wonderful because I love the ocean and nautical themes, and I often talk about my children who are not here in various characterizations, putting them either in a captain of a pirate ship. In the case of Theodore, his name is Captain Theo. Um, and we've never really gone over it. It's like we know that he did serve. We never really discussed what his service was. We're always just like, thank you for your service. I'm pretty sure he was a pirate, based on the rest of his name, which is Captain Theodore Bootstraps Iron Jaws. So that is kind of where a lot of this inspiration came from, was my cat's silly lore. Captain Theodore Bootstraps Iron Jaws. So it essentially, the inner story and the lore for this became I went real hard into, like, Friday. I got real excited because I was like, man, Turnip 28, I love Turnip 28, and if I had not been distracted by demons and all the other stuff of last year, probably would have built a lot more Turnip 28 stuff, and we'll get to that. But so I was like, man, I love that little universe. I've always wanted to add some kind of little cat people, because I love cats. And I was doing that, like, since we started messing with Turnip, trying to figure out how I wanted to make my little addition to the Turnip world. And I wanted to make a cat race of people, but I don't want them to be cats, but a lot like cats. They're just like, they're not cats, but they're a lot like cats. Just a mix between Richard Scarry art, which he did childhood art. He made Busy World, Huck Cat. But I could find a picture of Huck Cat if you all don't know what Huck Cat looks like. But that led to a deep dive. So that's Huck Cat. It was Richard Scarry was like a child, like, author. I love Richard Scarry. I absolutely love Roald Dahl. Like, any of those old. The drawing is so interesting to me. I don't know. I guess the animation from those kind of books always it definitely left a lasting impression. But that kind of vibe, I wanted a very silly but kind of gritty. And I'm going to keep going with the aesthetic. I'm going to work more on that. But that's inspiration wise. I just thought I would share that because I don't want it to be just a straight up like a Conquerors thing. It's just like, no, not like Conquerors Bad Fur Day. It's definitely like the idea that I have for them is definitely its own thing. But anywho, so I started drawing this program. So that whole thing was a tidbit slip into how easy it is for me to get carried away with an idea. So in Friday I remember, and I recorded the whole thing. That was the other thing. I filmed from start to finish. This guy starting as a jar of peanuts. But here's the bottom half of this bad boy. But yeah, he started as a jar of peanuts and a vanilla Coke bottle. that I finished the jar of peanuts. I did cheat. Technically, my son and we ate the jar of peanuts probably over the course of like a week. Uh, for a while. I mean, we were pounding out peanuts. We would just come downstairs and play video games and just mindlessly eat peanuts. But now we're getting back in the hobby grind, baby. But luckily, we got a lot of peanut jars. So I'm gonna grab one of those that's actually not cut up, just to show what I'm talking about, Willis. Okay. So yeah, this is the body of that. Sorry, not that. Its name is the Corpse Wake 2. Corpse Wake 2. Not the Squeakquel. And I do have intentions of either A, revisiting, touching up, or redoing. Because my wife and I, we talked a lot about different ideas that we had because we both loved this little boat so much, despite making lots of real grisly, grimdark stuff. I absolutely adore fun, whimsical, silly stuff. I think one of the biggest inspirations also for aesthetic was Marvel's Misadventures of Flapjack, but that's just like in general. I love that vibe, and that's what I was getting at. That was my rant. I think my aesthetic, a kind of like fun Turnip 28 kind of vibe that I like for certain things, not demons included. But it's very much, it's influenced a lot by Roald Dahl's art, by not Maurice Sendak. No, yeah, Maurice Sendak. Maurice Sendak is where the wild things are, right? Yeah, no. Yeah, no, that came out, but that's who I meant. Maurice Sendak, he's big dog. Maurice Sendak, Roald Dahl, absolutely did a fuck ton of like shaping my childhood. So I don't mean to talk. Awesome. But so essentially, Friday I remembered that we were going to go play a game, and I was like, oh man, I'm so excited. I need to make a little boat. And then I was like, God, I want to make a boat that like could be an intro to this little group of like cat people that I wanted to try and introduce into the turnip like ecosystem. And the name Togram was, or Togram, Togram. It's of course, as you may know, or may not know, those at home, Togram. It's a word that will pop up in various places from here and there on this channel, sometimes spelled like this, Togram, Togram, which coincidentally is how you spell Margot backwards. But so I essentially took that. Togram was a name that I used for a character in D&D that I don't think we ever even played with, but I spent a lot of time working up this class, this character. Essentially, it was a character based on Margot, of her back lore as a blood paladin, someone who just loves bloodshed. They worship the concept of bloodshed as a god, not like corn. Cut that bullshit out. Cut the middleman out. You don't need the blood god. You just need bloodshed. That's what Margot worships in this fictional universe where she smashes gerblins with hammers all the time. So I made a little boat. I drew up this picture. It was a nod to James and the Giant Peach, which is a Roald Dahl book, but also one of my favorite films as a kid. And my mom mentioned this the other day when she came over and I showed her all of my demons for the first time. And it went wonderful. But she's mentioned that it's often like the stuff that I make. It looks like the stuff that I would obsess over from films when I was a little kid. And it's just like, yeah, like a lot of the stuff that people seem to be interested in about the models that I make are made using the same kind of techniques and stuff that I learned about when I was a kid of how they made the things in movies that I really, really liked, especially sci-fi stuff. That's always been my favorite. Like creature design, prop design. I love anything real for a film. It just makes it so much better. Uh, but yeah, she mentioned that, and that made me think of all these things. Anywho, so we get this kitty boat. The name Corpse Wake 2 comes from the list that, of course, my wife and I keep of boat names. You got to have a good list of boat names. We have a list of band names and we have a list of boat names that we just kind of keep going for when we need one. And the list of band names is absurdly long, but that is the first on that list, as I mentioned, was RedWetSkeleton. That is where I got my handle. That was a nod to, not even a nod, it was just straight up, we were playing Diablo 3 and we just got so pumped about every time we would hit somebody so hard that it would blow their red wet skeleton out of their back. Like it just turns them into a blood cloud. Like when you crit and they just explode with this red wet skeleton that just flops on the ground. It's just really, really comically brutal. And that is, I guess, what brings me to why I like that stuff, I guess. The Roald Dahl, the Richard Scarry, Maurice Sendak, their art was always very kind of gritty. There's a grittiness to it. It's not polished. It's not polished like most other art that is presented towards children. And I think that that's really interesting. And I wonder, I've not really deep dove into that, but I would be curious to see how much of an impact that had, what kind of impact that had on me. But their aesthetic is wonderful. I don't think I ranted on here. I think I ranted while we were playing the game. But I love the aesthetic because it reminds me of one of my favorite, like, you were right, but it was when, in an interview Tim Curry did, talking about playing the role of Frankenfurter, in which he said that, he tried to play the role not from how I think most people look at it, but from a very literal, he is an alien, and it adds a lot of real grisliness to it when you look at it outside of the realm that the movie tries to present it to you in. But if you look at it from if this is what actually is happening and is real, it's really grisly. But I believe his direct quote was, there is a sort of very real grisly dread there. And that's what I kind of want if I'm not making something if I'm not doing realism, and that's really what with my demons, that's just a continuation of what I've started to do when I met the Wires, or what I was doing when the Wires and I met. We were doing the same thing. We were both trying to add realism to our hobby. And that's, while they go for guns and stuff, I go for horror. I really want to add the element of the nightmare in the 41st millennium. People are like, oh yeah, Warhammer, you don't want to be a Space Marine. What? You're awful. If you're a Space Marine, one, you don't feel anything. You're just you're a gun, a man made into a gun weapon, and also a killing machine. You're so scary. And then the best thing that's gonna happen is you're gonna kill scarier things. No one wants that. But this, I like this. It's very lighthearted, but at the real root of it, oh, this is pretty grisly actually. It's a bunch of little cat people, and they're all crammed in this sub, kicking each other and murdering goblins and turnip people. And that one likes to bash them into pastes. Ugh. When you think about it, that's not good. It's pretty grim, pretty grisly. But it's playful though. I think that's it. It's the same thing with Doom 2016. But they're the good guys, exactly. They're the good guys. It's the art director. I love Doom 2016 is one of my favorite games because it really, I think they nailed that trope of what is very difficult to nail down, and that's what my issue is. I think with Trench Crusade, not to do that, but I think my issue with Trench Crusade is that they did not do this, where it's not lighthearted. It's all very heavy-hearted, and it's a lot of real-world issues. It's too over the top to deal with real-world issues, I think. I think the way of dealing with a lot of real-world issues that cause people a lot of stress and stuff at the tabletop is through humor. At least for me, coping mechanism always. Maybe, but yeah, I don't know. Like making something playful, making it not as serious, which not to encourage that or go along with that, but yeah, a good chunk of trying to like make things light and humorous would be I mean, I already had characters when we went up to go play Sunday. I already had characters in my head of just, oh, Dad, thank you so much for recreating our boat. Yes, no, I didn't even know you knew about the Corpse Wake 2. We've committed so many war crimes. Just Margot being just the separation of like, oh, well, that was what we did in the boat. I think the humor is what pushed Warhammer into the forefront back in the day. And that's it. Yeah, it's the... I think I love the real grittiness of it because it's like, it's so bad it's comical. And while there are a lot of things that it's just like, man, with Warhammer, like, oh man, you know, and I will compare that to World War One. A lot of things are over the top, but it's the same thing with like reality, where it's just like, yeah, at a certain point, you just gotta laugh. People love 40k orcs because they're pretty silly, yeah, and that's their whole shtick. Like, I love them because they're really barbaric and brutish. They are absolutely like. I'll make sure she's not on the couch before I say this. She's gonna get pissed off. Hey, how are you? I wasn't talking about you. But yeah, there is like definitely, in particular, if Margot played 40k, there's a race that she would play because that's kind of her vibe, and that's them. It would probably be them. She just loves fighting and killing. That joke, I don't know if I've ever explained that. Margot likes to kill bugs, specifically brown recluses. And she has hair. Her toe hairs are about that long. They like when she runs around the house, like her hairs that come between her toes are so long they cover the pad of her foot. So she just kind of like slides and Tokyo drifts. And there's been countless at this point. I don't remember how many times I've found Margot, or my wife has found Margot, doing something, and we'll come over there and she's just sitting there going, smack, 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 smack. And she is just sitting in the floor wearing essentially fluffy sock and boppers and just beating a brown recluse to death like the softest pats until all of his bones, his body just bends and breaks. But it can't bite her because it can't get to her skin because of all the hair. And the first couple times it was just like, Jesus Christ, Margot, what are you doing? And then you're like, oh God. Actually, not even the first couple times. It's scary every time you find your cat playing with the brown recluse. Those things are very, very poisonous. I have known at least 2 people, like in my lifetime, that have died from being bitten by one. If they bite you in like a really bad place, like the first one that I heard of, he got bit like on his chest, like, and the dude had a pacemaker. And it pretty much killed him like the next day. It was nuts. Like, that's a freak accident though. Brown recluses use necrotizing venom. It's if you really want a disturbing some body horror, look up brown recluse bites. That will show you it'll get some real good demon textures out of that. Man, I'm so derailed and not focused this morning. I'm sorry. It's been days. Anywho, so I built this little guy. We started with a peanut butter jar, and I covered it in all kinds of plastic. That was a vanilla Coke. So essentially, I wanted to make something out of trash, out of scratch that anybody could. That way, we could show up and we could play a game, and anyone that was like, at our local store would see it and be like, "Wow, I could do that," because that's what I want. And I talked a lot to Clay and Brian and my wife. I've talked a lot to everybody. I've talked about Possum, other people in the hobby lately. I've talked to them about what I want, and it's just like I want to make other people feel like they have a place that they can come and hang out and play and have fun. That's what I want, and I want to tell stories that other people can enjoy. That's what I want to do, and I'm trying to work out how to do it. That's what I am passionate about. Clay and I were talking about that. I've been talking about that a lot of people, but that is the thing. My passion has always been storytelling since I was a child, playing with my cousins, like in our grandparents' like basement, running around. And this was like a big, kind of like my house, except the stairs weren't over here; they were in the middle. So you had like a big. Actually, no. If that's fine. So yeah, very much. There's kind of like a little big circle. Their house it was held up by support beams, basement boiler, held up by supports. So like there was like a little ring underneath their house. You could ride little big wheels and whatnot in. It was a very big basement. Uh, when I was a child, we were also very small, so you don't realize how smaller things are when you're a child. Uh, Anywho, I want to make games. I want to tell stories that other people can enjoy. And that's what brought me to making this. The Corpse Wake 2. Corpse Wake 2, I didn't finish that thought, was the top name from our list of boat names, because you always need a list of boat names. And that was absolutely from one of our trips to Florida, very clearly, where we were like, shit, we need a boat. We need a boat, and we need to, like, what would we name it? Corpse Wake 2 is it's one of the best boat names ever, whether your boat looks like that or whether it looks like a boat today. I think funnier if it looks like a boat today. This looks like a Corpse Wake 2. And also, we're not buying a boat. Just to clarify that. It was like we should get a boat. What would we name it? But yeah, so I tried to make it out of stuff that anyone has access to, and I did cheat. The only thing I cheated with, so the circles against this and the eyes, those are the only things that came from a model kit, but they came from old car models, wheels, just circles. And I did that solely for time because, and the wheel at the top, that's a steering wheel. Oh my God, you're spending your $1 billion YouTube dollars on a boat. That's it, baby. If you look at my views, I need to, like, I have a YouTube channel. I've not made it very fancy yet. And I'm working on it. It's 7:10, it's Tuesday. 4, I'm sorry. It's Tuesday. We make coffee at 7:10 on Tuesday. Not 7:40. We're late. I will be right back. Fuck. not getting a boat. Yeah, I forgot to make coffee. I forgot to set the timers, all the things at the right time. But now I'm making coffee, so while we're up there, finish that here in just a couple seconds. But until then, I'll talk about the boat. I was talking about what I made it out of. So the top steering wheel, that's a steering wheel from a car. This was a pill bottle that I cut. So that is where that, and the rest is just straight up plastic. But what I was getting at with that is my YouTube channel. I have not really spent a lot of time, but I am going to change that. So I filmed the entire process of this from beginning to end, with the exception of priming. I didn't film me priming it because I did it outside. But so I'm excited about that because one, it shows me how long it takes me to do things because I don't typically have a good grasp of time, as we all know. So one, it's cool to be able to film myself making something so I know how long it takes to do things. And then two, it also will show other people, like, hey, because that's it. Like, I'm not trying to gatekeep with like my techniques, like this stuff. Uh, I'm fine with anybody knowing how to do the things that I do. Like, everyone, I don't know. I don't, the idea of making things for like a job is the right, that'd be the best thing in the world. Like, I just want to tell stories and I just want to make things. And I need to figure out a way. I would like to figure out a way that I can do that more healthily than I currently do, but it's a process. So I love this little boat so much, and I am definitely going to be working on it more. Or not working on it, but making more little boats. So the bottom, to give an idea, this is just straight up like foam board, and that is a like I want to say it's a felt pad. I think people use them sometimes for like sliding furniture, but essentially it is a self-adhesive felt pad, and it's the same kind that I put underneath the child inverted furniture moving pad. Yeah, like that. So it's sticky on the back, but then just straight felt. And I did that. So it is not technically, when I sit it down, it technically kind of hovers. And I did that because I wanted it to kind of look like it was floating in the water. 3M, baby. That's it. You got it. I'm going to go check the coffee. I'll be right back. I'm sorry, this is terrible on YouTube. But at the same time, I didn't mean to. I forgot. And I will be more focused when I come back because they don't have coffee. So I'll be back in just a couple minutes, Possum. Everyone else, here's this. Margot, if you would like to come and entertain our guests. Be right back. Okay, Dad. I'm back, and I will probably be leaving momentarily to say goodbye to my wife as she leaves into the night. Actually, it'd be the morning. Into the morning. Not to be seen until 12 o'clock by me. Her coworkers will see her. And the unfortunate people in court today, they will also see my wife. Don't do crime. Yeah, so the eyes. It was a very, very quick, very messy. Threw it together. Pretty much, I thought about putting little dots and then taking my drills and adding all the rivets. And I was going to, and then I realized that's kind of crazy if I do that. So I don't have time for that. Given that the whole setting for like scabs takes place in this like oily black, murky sump. I wanted it to look very like clunky and thick, but so I pretty much just went with like a black primer. I took a Rust-Oleum. This was a very, I need to just be quick. So I went with the old matte hammered Rust-Oleum. Just went outside after I primed it and sprayed it with that. And then pretty much came in and globbed it with this traditional Chinese ink. Just globbed it on there. And I think it turned out well. It very, very quick. It was, I mean, I started on Friday. From Friday to today. I think my wife is here. I'll be right back. Not yet. So, where was I going with this? Yeah. Paint. So yeah, other than that, the eyes. The eyes I took not bright ivory. I took bold titanium white. Bold titanium white from over here. I don't know where I put it, but it's bold titanium white and then transparent white from Procryl. I took those. So the transparent white, that's a little Chrysacryl pro tip for you there. Shout out to my boy. But yeah, I'll put transparent white around the edges. All right, now these are. So we can turn that off. All right, 740 alarm is turned off. Ah, that's clever. What did I do that was clever? Oh yeah, so I took the now I'm cooking. Now I'm cooking. I took transparent white. So Chris's thing that he said, I didn't use a airbrush. Um, I didn't use an airbrush because I didn't want to use my airbrush because of time. Man, that is gonna. They are literally like on top of my like desk behind the camera, like it's right in my face. So here we go. Then I hit my boat. I scooch. Coal black. I don't know if I used coal black or not. I think it might have been. Nope, I have not because it was sealed. So I did not use coal black. I was going to, and same thing with the white. I started to use a Vallejo white, and then I got pissed off because it was way too watered and gritty, and it just was not going to do the thing. So I said, screw it, and I opened up. That's just a unopened bottle of transparent white. I like transparent white a lot. It's really good. So bolt titanium white, I ended up popping that open. Yep, you can tell because they got the paint at the top. So I love transparent white. But I took bolt titanium white and I put it. These round parts are actually clear. They're painted on the inside and the outside technically. So on the inside, I took transparent white and like fluorescent. So essentially, okay, so the clear parts are off. It's just the little white ball. I took transparent white and put it all around there. So we've got a very thin, very, very, very thin white on the whole shape of the eye, including outside of the porthole. And then I took titanium white and I put it just inside the porthole. And it was very wet and very messy. And I do also, that's in the video, so I'll have that. But pull my own feet up here. I did not use bismuth yellow. I thought about it. Whose is this? That's Row Copies. Hey, Louise. I like Louise's paints, as you can imagine. So fluorescent yellow. That is what essentially this color is. And they look different, and I kind of like that. I do like that the eyes don't look the same. One is milkier and the other is like almost darker, but yeah. So I took a clear, these are I believe a light, probably like a light from a car model. So it was clear. These little caps. Oh, actually no, like a porthole. I'm pretty sure it goes to the Lost in Space family Robinson mobile that they drove on the planet in the 1960s or whatever movie, TV show. I had 2 model kits of those. I had a lot of portholes down the side. So I took 2 of those pieces of plastic. I smeared fluorescent yellow inside the lens because it's very runny. It's a weird, really thick kind of paint. It's very gloopy. It's not like other acrylic consistency. And I'm sure that it has to do with whatever makes it work. Or maybe I didn't mix mine enough. But I liked how it turned out. It did what I wanted. So from there, I took the traditional Chinese ink and just smeared it over different parts that were painted with that beaten hammered metal. That way we had that real tarry kind of look to it. If I could do it again and I had all the time in the world, my wife and I, we talked about how great it would be to have LEDs in there that flickered. If you like video games, there is one out there called Dredge, which I truly adore, but it is a fishing game. It is a Lovecraftian fishing game where you play a fisherman and you pretty much just drive a little boat around and throw your line over and catch fish and sell them, but all while unearthing a very eldritch story. But yeah, so essentially what Chris was getting at with his pro tip, I never finished that, is that when you take, like, doing it how Chris was saying, you put the white in the middle, say there's no clear part there, then you take transparent white and you would essentially take the airbrush and you hit it from the top, causing a cone. And that was what he was getting at with it, was not to give his secrets. But I thoroughly loved hearing how he did it, because it's like light, directional light is something that's very intimidating, if you don't know how to do it. And this is like my first one of messing with it outside of unintentionally. But unintentionally, and I mean that by like, oh yeah, I wasn't trying to do it, I was just painting, and I realized that the things that I was doing give me the same results as what you're talking about. And I don't know where that model is, but it's one of my Black Templars. One of my Black Templars that's covered in purity seals. But surprised that I didn't have any Pro Acryl yellow green. Yeah, so there's bright yellow green. That's, I think, this guy. And I've not even opened it yet. So my wife bought me the Pro Acryl, like the set, and like 2 of the expansions for Christmas. Because she's wonderful and loves me. I love Pro Acryl paints. That is Pro Acryl, Scale 75, and Turbo Dork are pretty much where my paints are all going these days. I do still have a lot of Vallejo, because that's what my local store has the most of, and that's what I switched to from Citadel. But if I was starting now, I'd only buy Pro Acryl and Turbo Dork. That is hot coffee. I'm a big old baby. And they have a very greenish tint on camera. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, no, I'd say, yeah, no, I would say that they do. It's a fluorescent, yeah, a greenish. I would say they have a green. I bet. I've never opened that guy. It wasn't like I don't know about that possum. No, they definitely, it's, like I wanted it to have a greenish yellow light in it. Again, it's supposed to be a reference to my son Theo, who has green eyes. He has very bright green yellow eyes. I wanted it to be like he was a giant boat just coming out like, and that's pretty much how the game went. We did a lot of taking pictures in between turns. The game was an absolute blast, and that really also summarizes what I want out of my hobby, out of my art, not out of my art. Never phrase that, because there's different things. I bought that skeleton not with the intention of having fun, but doing a statement, making people think. But I think, I still make art doing other things. I think this little guy, he's art, but he was just for fun, and to go play a game with some friends, which was another victory for me, because I am a hermit. And I didn't realize this to the full extent, I suppose, until I went and was trying to talk to people and was almost having panic attacks, while trying to talk to people at Hard Knocks. Or I could feel myself when I started to tell, a lot of people would, so I need to start from the beginning. Because it is a E28 meetup, I brought all of my toys, because we've never had an event. I've never had a meetup with people that want to see these kinds of things, where I had to just bring them out of my house and 10 minutes down the road. Everything else has always been it's a big event, so you don't really get to bring all the bells and whistles if you're flying or driving across the country, say Adepticon or stuff like that. You only bring what you really have to, because you don't want to carry more than you don't need, unless you're Johnny and I on the first times that you go on these big trips, and then you bring everything in the kitchen sink and you're like, I'm never fucking doing that again. But what that all comes down to is I brought all of my demons. I brought my Emperor's Children. I have a box upstairs of all of my, I guess, 28 models outside of my demons. It's got Regar the Undying, which was like a Nurgle Plague Marine that I made for my friend Sam's Black Crusade character. And he was, I think, the second model that I ever posted on the ammo bunker. So that's where a lot of people like that know me, they like knew me through that model. And through my Dark Heresy models that I made during that time period where I just did role-playing games. I made models for like our characters, and not all of them got painted, but not all of them. By not all of them, I mean only Brigar. They all got built. But then also, when you make characters for people, it's just like, oh, I don't know how many hours I spent building the Inquisitor and my character Grox, who Grox is one of my favorite characters I've gotten to play, but he is a half mutant. So in Dark Heresy, one of the classes is mutant, and Grox, in my very tongue-in-cheek, it's not tongue-in-cheek, it's just, look at me, I'm doing a thing, I'm doing a bit. My mutant was a real, this is where we are, BB, because his mutation was he had gigantism. Like, he was a normal guy who was just really big. That's it. But he was a mutant. He suffered from gigantism, but we essentially, and his name was Grox. So he was from an agri world. His name was Grox. He was just as big as a Grox. I really liked my character. He essentially was, and there's I'll have to find pictures, but absolutely like Marv, I'm pretty sure is the name, Marv from Sin City. The guy with all the cuts on his face, he just mimics. Like it was Marv if Marv was like 7'5". But that character was very fun. He would just rip people limb from limb, and then beat other people with their limbs. Yeah, I made him to where I just wanted his, like, all of my character, like progression for him was spent to where you hope that someone gives him a gun and he doesn't get near you with his hands because he's going to beat you to death and it's going to be agonizing. But that essentially was like Dark Heresy. The whole campaign that we did was the Inquisitors warband just kind of fucking up this hive city, while I expected them to figure out an actual proper investigation. So yeah, I've always loved to make models for things that I make in stories. I've always loved storytelling. That's where I came to this. So I brought all of my toys, and a lot of people were there that I've never met. And by a lot of people there, I meant there was a guy that I went to high school with that works at the store, Adam. He's a great guy. We were in course together. Real nice. He's a big teddy bear guy. Real fun guy. Real nice. Real sweet guy. Always makes me feel very welcome. And then Wayne, the owner, who I've known for years, kind of, because I go in there, and we have a weird relationship where I tell him what I'm working on, and he's like, wow, that's really cool. That's so cool. And I'm like, thanks. And then I leave because I don't like to talk to people. But I realized that I'd been calling him Wade, like as in Wade Wilson, like Deadpool, for years, because I misunderstood the pronunciation of his name, which that's awful. But luckily, I rarely talk to him because I'm a hermit. So, anywho, so yesterday, today's Tuesday, Sunday, I take all my toys. I met a guy named Alan and a guy named Michael and a bunch of other people whose names I don't remember, that were very, very nice, and they are all from my area, and they all had a lot of interest in my demons and how I made them, and they had so many questions about our community, and that is what I wanted. Like that's I didn't I that's it. Like it's not like, oh, I want to scare people with my models. I want to show people like look what I made. It's a you don't have to buy something. Like you don't have to buy a box to have fun. You don't have to spend money. Like you have everything you need up here. Uh, Now buying things definitely. I mean, I've spent a shit ton of money to accumulate everything in this room. But again, like the child inverted, which is absolutely like the most impressive model I've ever made. And I said model. It's a model technically. Nick, modern synthesis would argue that it's not a model. That none of my demons are. That they are just art. And they are art. But I also argue that models are art. I think it's a form. I think it's definitely a form. I'm not going to try to argue that the skeleton, the life-size skeleton, it's not going to be a model. I'm not going to pretend that one. Or as Nick says, I've been trying to convince you all that my art is just models for years. But yeah, so I don't know if I've ever shown this the Algonquin, which the Algonquin is not a an appropriation. It has nothing to do with like it's just the name of the street that we had to drive on a lot when we went to Adepticon last year. We were constantly going down Algonquin, and every time we would say it, it was like, "Oh, turn down Algonquin, 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 Algonquin." So like the Algonquin, that name was said in many different ways. Turn down the gonk. While just being goofy boys in Chi-Town. And during the game on Johnny's wild board with all the floating like pieces, essentially my character, my demon host, realized that it was about to get really screwed, and the only way to not be screwed was to throw its consciousness into another body, and the only body that was around was this little guy that Dark Tech Vince had made. Has a round little dome with little round mechanical eyes and lots of little creepy limbs. So my demon host, cult leader, pretty much threw his like spirit out of his shell body into this little being, and that from there it turned into that is the Algonquin. That is the Algonquin, which we did look it up, and it is a indigenous peoples term, but I could never find what the word actually meant. I believe it was actually people. But from there, it was just very quickly taking that word and 40King it in the sense of switching out vowels, switching out consonants, making it Old English, making it improper English, breaking the word down until there were various versions of the word that all kind of sound the same and mean the same thing. And the idea was this character, this little thing, is a Xenos. It's a Xenos species that almost are like eternal, or they just live for millennia. And while I had found one that was like extremely young, like they eventually grow to be just like colossal sized, and that's what led me to working on this guy, which is supposed to be a version of that little guy, or the same species as that little guy that has been captured and turned into a vacuum tube, essentially, from like an amplifier, or a TV, essentially old electronics. But the plan is to have him built in there to where it looks like he is the power of a vacuum tube, and then to have this set into a board so it looks like you're fighting underneath this like vacuum tube, uh, this giant monstrosity in it aboard a Chaos Hulk. So that's the plan. Ooh, and I think old Possum has left me. My dear, dear Possum has departed, I believe. So it is just me. And with that, though, it is 7:49. I've been going for like an hour, hour 10 actually. If you've listened to the whole thing, thank you. I promise that there is more coming for this channel. It's not just going to be this streaming. My first video that I put up will be a proper edited video. Oh, you're here. It says only one person is watching, and I'm one of them. So, man, I don't know how that works. At the end of the day, I don't trust any of this. I don't trust any of these numbers. These numbers trying to tell me things. Extension cords hanging from the ceiling. What am I supposed to do? I forgot that I don't think you can see that. No, I have a I have a magnetic dry erase board that I keep on the return duct above my head. And I forgot about it until just now. I was like, oh yeah. Shit, what was I saying? I think I had to restart the stream. I'm sure it goofed something up. Gotcha, that's probably it. I just saw that the watcher count changed, and I was like, I guess he's left. But no worries at all, man. I appreciate you being here. Always do. So essentially, tomorrow I think we will be back to actually trying to get some stuff done, painting. I have to. I'm going to finish this guy I'm going to make myself finish this guy before I start working on stuff for scabs. But that is probably where I was going with it. I absolutely loved playing that game. I had so much fun. The rules are 6 pages because there's like a page or two of art. But from what I deduced, and I never played Tonks, but that will change. I absolutely loved Scabs. It's just such a very fun little vibe. But I believe we will have more pictures shared from our little game coming up. I'm going to edit that video this week, as well as begin working on an intro for my channel. That's something I've been brainstorming. I've been working a lot behind the scenes on what I want to do and what I plan to do. I think I finally am at like a point that I have an understanding of what I want out of my hobby and out of my life, really. Like, and I'm ready to start actually working on making that happen. Man, that eye looks good. Not to toot my own horn, but I was like, oof, that's nasty. And yes, a lot of people like came up and looked at my demons and were like, oh, that's awful. I am glad that after bringing them to my local hobby shop, I am allowed back in my local hobby shop. That was a small concern. But yeah, I will get back to finishing up Frustration. I am also currently, I have to I'm writing up something for the wires, so we can release that last article about the final culmination of the Mysterian event. I have told them that I would write an article on this for a while, and I didn't know how to begin doing it. But I started on it last night, and I'm doing it in a narrative way. So essentially just an article. They wanted the names, descriptions, a little bit about each of my monstrosities and my demons, like from a lore standpoint. And I definitely want to do that, but I also wanted to do it in a way that kind of lets you see how I came up with them and my mindset, I guess, of everything about them. So it is narratively done, starting with the first. It's switching places. The same summary of an event uh, being told by this character and then this character, kind of switching between them. I think it will read well. I really liked what I wrote last night. It's been a while since I've done that, but I'm going to finish that today, get that over to them. So hopefully you'll be seeing that up on their blog soon. Which that's another thing is I've been on the fence about, do I want to start a blog? Or do I want to start a Patreon? And the Patreon, that one, I only say that. And as soon as I said that, oh yeah, definitely, like my wife was like, I wouldn't do that. And she's like, I don't want, it's not the money. There's a lot of tools in Patreon that I think would be very useful for me, specifically voting, which I do that on Instagram. But Instagram, you have to be on and shit. There's probably ways that, again, I'm just trying to figure out how to make myself more accessible and how to use the tools that are already out there that I can access to put out what I want to put out. But a big part of issues that I have is focus, which is very surprising, I know. But I'm trying to log off, and I'm talking about this. But voting, being able to choose what I work on, if I have 5 things that I want to work on, and allowing people to vote on what I put my focus on, that is more of what I was wanting to use it for. I guess similar to how Nick's is, which I've not looked at as often, but I know that he has a free, and then if you're like, hey, I want to give you money, there's an option there too. And I don't ever want to promise I'm not, that's it. I don't want anyone to think that, oh, if you give me money, I'll make you a better painter. I'm never going to say that. You have to put in time, or make you a better storyteller, or make you better at anything. It's I don't want to ever set up false, expectations. I just want to be able to show what I'm working on and have it at a readily accessible place. And I was thinking that a blog or a Patreon would do that. The Patreon would cut a couple middleman out of the equation if I went with that route, as far as being able to, if someone's like, hey, I want to give you $5, because that's why Nick made his, is that enough people asked him, and I have been asked if I did commissions, if I had a Patreon, if I had a Ko-fi, and it's just I don't. So I'm thinking that was it, as opposed to a blog, because to my knowledge, I don't think there's a way to do polls. But that's the main thing with the Patreon that I've been interested in, because I've tried to do them on Instagram, but only so many people will respond because it only stays active for so long. And that's the thing. I very much value people's input, especially when it's I don't know which direction I want to go, because I want to do all of the things. But that's still a thought. I'm not trying to quit my day job. This is more of I'm trying to figure out what the hell I want. And just talking out loud. It's, again, just a morning hobby hang, just a stream of consciousness, as Possum puts it. So I'm just trying to think out loud. But I have talked and talked and talked. It is 7:58. I got to go turn all my other shit on for work. But I am working on editing. I am working on the intro video. We're going to get the channel going a lot more. And I'm going to start trying to actually start moving forward with some ideas that I have. And that I want to work on. But until next time, sit pretty, take care, have fun, do some storytelling, keep having fun, doing good stuffs. Get to work, you lazy bum. I'm a lazy bum. Bye, Possum. Bye, everybody. Doop, doop, doop.